everyone, and welcome into this very special edition of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger, the show that always talks UGA recruiting each and every week. Today, though, a special edition of our broadcast because in just a couple of minutes, we'll bring you a live reaction to the announcement when four-star safety Lewis Cine makes his college choice. A lot of Georgia fans are hopeful that choice is the Bulldogs. When it goes down, we'll bring you the results and the reaction to it here in the moment here today on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Of course, my name is Brandon Adams. Normally, you see sitting at this desk with me for the show, Dog Nation's recruiting insider Jeff Sintel. Good and bad news on that front. The bad news is, obviously, you don't see Jeff sitting here right now. Jeff is already in Louisiana for Dog Nation Invasion later on this weekend. But we will be able to get Jeff on the phone here after Lewis Cine makes his choice. We'll get some reaction from Jeff Sintel on that today, presented by Kroger on Before the Hedges here. Now, obviously, a lot of Georgia fans are already plugged in. They know a lot about Cine. They know why there's a lot of build-up to his announcement when it comes down here in just a couple of minutes. Really, probably within 10 minutes here, Cine will make his decision. But for others who are just learning and figuring out exactly who Cine is and how he could fit into Georgia's 2019 class, where he commit to the Bulldogs, let's find out a little bit more about Lewis Cine right now here. And let's do so in his own words, both with some of the things that Cine has told to Jeff Sintel and also some of the things that Cine has recently put out on social media. Let me start with a few tweets here from Lewis Cine to set the stage for the announcement when it comes down here in a couple of minutes. It was not that long ago, within the last couple of weeks, that Cine was celebrating getting his All-American jersey, the Under Armour All-American game, the one that Cine's going to play in at the end of the year, and you see him there showing that off. Obviously, this is a game that's been good to Georgia in the past. Some elite recruits in the last couple of years have been a part of this game, and Lewis Cine will become one of the latest, potentially, if he chooses Georgia later on. So you're talking more of the nation's top players just by virtue of the fact that he's going to be an Under Armour All-American here at the end of the season. Of course, there is some optimism out there for a Cine in Georgia circles, but maybe a few roadblocks to deal with here. He did take a visit to Florida over the weekend for the LSU game. They rolled out the red carpet, including this funny photo you see here of Cine wearing the Florida blue. And, boy, that's a sight that'll sting the eyes a little bit. But with the Florida uniform on, he's also holding the gator here with the jersey on. There's something about this that's unseemly. I don't quite know what Florida had to do to this alligator to get it to be cooperative enough to put a football jersey on and then be held by Lewis Cine, but nonetheless, that's what Cine does there. I don't know that Florida's a real player here, as Jeff Sintel has explained in the past. Florida may have just got involved in this entire process a bit too late, but they did host him for a visit. He held a reptile, so I guess you got to include them in the discussion here somewhat. But the big news, the reason why we're all gathered here right now, is because of what Cine tweeted, I guess it would have been yesterday afternoon, at Jeff Sintel and some others in the recruiting industry, that he was going to make his announcement. He lives in Texas at 12 p.m. Central Time or 1 p.m. Eastern, which is the hour we're about to come up on as we watch live here on the Dog Nation video channels on Before the Hedges. So that's Lewis Cine's story here. Now, he also tweeted something else kind of interesting in the last 12 hours or so, actually within the last 15 hours, saying, everybody think they know, but they have no idea. Hashtag just wait on it. That may be a message to whether it be the recruiting industry or just overall college football fans who assume that Cine's decision's already made here. He's saying, hey, hold out, and you may be surprised. You may find out. And obviously, Georgia fans have been down that road before. It wasn't that long ago that we sat here in this same studio on another Before the Hedges presented by Kroger recruiting special, expecting another defensive back, the junior college defensive back DJ Daniel, to choose Georgia. Daniel, I think, surprised most of us when he chose South Carolina that day. Could Lewis Cine also be in for a surprise here in a couple of minutes? As Cine says, we'll just have to wait to find out, and I think Cine as a player is certainly someone worth waiting for. Although one of the reasons why Georgia fans are optimistic about Cine, if you want to take him at his own words here, is over the course of his visits to Georgia, and he just has said before that those visits kept getting better and better and better. G-Day, the so-called reveal when the West End Zone facility was opened up, an official visit a couple of weeks ago, he just really felt like the red carpet was rolled out for him in each of those visits, really, and he recently explained to Jeff Sintel that on one of those visits, I believe it was the reveal from back in the summer, that he actually almost pulled the trigger on a Georgia commitment then. Before we hear where Cine's going, let's learn more about him by listening to him describe the way that he felt welcomed at Georgia, so much so that he had to pump the brakes on committing right there on the spot.
Very tempting, man. I'm very close to Ryan Davis, and then I just got close to the running back,
John Emery.
Also the wide receiver there. Also,
Makai.
Yeah. I got close to them 3 boys. To be honest with you, it was very tempting. I'm not gonna lie to you.
What held you off?
You'll get caught in the moment. A lot of guys get caught in the moment. Just make that quick decision. But I'm a thinker.
So a couple things that Cine says there you'll notice are themes here in terms of the way that we'll talk about him in terms of how he's talked about himself. First of all, he mentions some relationships with either current Georgia commits, guys on the around the program. That'll be crucial. We'll hear more about that in just a moment. But he also said that he wanted to be deliberate in his process. You'll see coming up some examples of how he did that. Before four-star safety Lewis Cine makes his decision here in a couple of minutes, let's learn more about him. He says he almost committed to Georgia. What was the biggest selling point to him from the Bulldogs? Here's more of Lewis Cine with Jeff Sintel on that point.
Biggest selling point. I really have a great relationship with the coaching staff down there. Great relationship with Coach Tucker. Everyone, really. I would say, overall, it's just, one, I've created a great relationship with them. Two, in my opinion, I think their schemes and how I would fit in there, I'm very physical, and, my playing style, I think I would fit there perfectly fine because in their defense, when I talked to them, they showed me a lot of spots where I'd be able to play and really show how versatile I was.
Philip Sharp in our Facebook comment section says, where the hell is Sintel? Hey, that rhymes. Yeah, it does rhyme. And if you're just joining us, Jeff is already in Louisiana getting ready for Dog Nation Invasion. He's doing some early intel on some recruits there in the state of Louisiana. But he will join us by phone here in just a moment when we find out the news when it comes to four-star safety Lewis Cine. You're watching a very special presentation of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. And speaking of Kroger, they've got a great new offer for you and a great new opportunity for you to take advantage of. It's called Kroger Ship. It's really easy. You can get the essentials you need delivered right to your door. Shop now and get 15% off plus free shipping on your first order. So check out Kroger Ship. That is really good stuff. And really good stuff there from Lewis Cine, talking about what it is that makes Georgia attractive to him. And he also weighed in on how it is that he thinks he'd be used by Georgia. It's really his versatility that he thinks that Georgia's looking to exploit here and potentially wreak some havoc on some opposing SEC offenses. Here's more from Lewis Cine.
They see me playing a bit of all of it because I give them that type of flexibility. While I did camp for Coach Tucker, and he was really impressed with how fluid I was with my pedals, getting out of breaks, how fast I was, the length. I'm rangy. He really loved that. And then while watching the tape of the games and everything like that, he showed me everywhere he wants me playing to, make the defense flexible.
Stacy Moreland in our Facebook comment section says, what time does Lewis Cine commit? We're here live. It's 1 p.m. right now. The announcement from Cine should really come at any moment. And when it does, we'll give you a chance to hear that live here, or see reaction to it live anyway, on our Before the Hedges recruiting special presented by Kroger. While we're waiting on Cine to make his announcement, while we're waiting on Cine to make it known, we're giving you a chance to learn a little bit more about him, the process that he's gone through here, the relationship that he has with Georgia, the reason why some Georgia fans think it will indeed be UGA that he chooses today. But as we said before, Cine has been very explicit that he wants this to be a deliberate process. He wants to think about all the things that are, required to really acknowledge when you get ready to make a college decision here. And he wants to make sure that he hasn't been rushing into it too quickly. Now, obviously, he's ready to make that point known to the world today. But in terms of what he has been thinking about, it's more than just football. It's what's going to happen in the classroom as well. Academics are crucial here. He explained to Jeff Sintel recently when he thinks about the courses of study that he might pursue at Georgia, he wanted to make sure that he had all that squared away as well. Okay, so we have the announcement in. We'll hear more from Cine in terms of his process later on, but the announcement has come in. We can officially let it be known that Lewis Cine, the four-star safety, has committed to Georgia. So Georgia adds a big name here to its 2019 class. Four-star safety Lewis Cine commits to Georgia. So congratulations to Georgia here on adding another player of need and a target it really wanted to its 2019 class. This is obviously going to be great news here to many of the Georgia fans who are watching in our comment section, both on Facebook and YouTube. The announcement is official and done here. Four-star safety Lewis Cine has committed to the University of Georgia. Winston Mock says, glory, glory. Philip Sharp says, awesome. Michael Woodring says, yeah, he just committed to the G. Big news there. Gary and Christian Gulasano says, sick 'em. Matt Rukavina says, no video. We'll see some of that coming up, hopefully from Cine here in just a moment. Matt Rukavina also giving you the woo here. Kimberly Crane says, go Dogs. So a lot of reaction here to a four-star safety Lewis Cine who's made his decision known here. We'll get Jeff Sintel on this in just a moment. Speak to him today on our Before the Hedges recruiting special, as Cine has made his decision and made his announcement. And one of the things, and I know we're going to show you some more of this coming up in just a moment, but one of the things that I think that Georgia fans, one of the reasons why, and boy, doesn't the Georgia jersey there from a recent recruiting visit look really good on Lewis Cine. But when you see this video here of Cine in action, you understand one of the reasons why so many Georgia fans had grown to like him so much. I mean, I have a really cool job in the fact that I get to talk to Georgia fans really every single day and take surveys of their opinions. And I can tell you that one of the guys that I've been asked about most frequently in terms of guys that could be joining up with Georgia's class, guys who could be here in this program, Cine was one of the names I heard as much as anybody because of plays like the ones that you're about to see him make right here, where he really comes in, really lays the lumber as a hitter. He, as a safety, reminds a lot of people of a style of play like Richard LeCounte brings to the table. LeCounte admittedly was probably a slightly higher rated prospect when he came into high school for the class of 2017, but in terms of the style of play, certainly Lewis Cine brings that same style of play. So there's a lot of excitement here about Lewis Cine joining the class. Jordan Harris in our YouTube comment section says it very well. It's a crucial get. He puts that in all caps. I think that crucial is a good way to say that. I think that Georgia wants, and you heard this from Cine a moment ago, Georgia wants those versatile defensive backs. And when I hear that, what I hear is not so much cornerbacks that look like safeties, but safeties that look like cornerbacks. Safeties that can hit, safeties that can, be physical players, but also run like cornerbacks. That's really what Georgia's going after right here. And that's why they've targeted Lewis Cine, because he is a safety that brings that extra thump that you want in the SEC, but can also run with multiple wide receiver sets the way that most teams are playing them now, 3 and 4 wide receivers on every play for a lot of teams. We've seen that from Georgia against South Carolina earlier in the year, for instance, where your safety's got to be able to cover in pass coverage. Well, Lewis Cine's one of those guys, and it's one of the reasons why Georgia fans are really excited about him. Tyson Keever says going to have to get a second hit stick made when he gets there. Go Dogs. Yeah, you may have seen Richard LeCounte, the great photo that's out there of him walking into Sanford Stadium holding the bat, which is one of those props that Georgia uses for motivation. And Lewis Cine's one of those guys in the future that you could definitely see doing some of that same kind of stuff there as well. Anson McMahon says, man, our 2019 class is so stacked. Still a bunch of spots to fill, too. Yeah, listen, there is no doubt that, some of the guys that can still fall into this class and some momentum that can still emerge here for Georgia has a chance to be really good. Brian McPhail says on YouTube, finally some good recruiting news, and I understand where that's coming from on the heels of some decommits. That's one of those things where, different people had different responses to the decommitment from Jalen Perry or the decommitment from J.D. Bertrand. Some people looked at that as maybe those guys leaving and a door opening up for another player to come into the program. Obviously, there's really no way to take the Jayden Hazelwood news other than a negative for the program. But I think that for a lot of Georgia fans who were following the recruiting stuff closely, there was also a continued optimism even throughout that entire process because, a lot of people knew this date for Cine was going to get here sooner rather than later, and that there are some other guys like Cine who have just as favorable of an impression of the Georgia Bulldogs as he does. We'll hear more from Lewis Cine in terms of his recruiting process here coming up in just a moment. While we're waiting on that, and also going to check up with Jeff Sintel here too, we'll take more of your comments as well. Paul Link on YouTube says that Cine can cover the entire field, and that's one of the things that you do like about him is that he is that guy that can cover a lot of ground. Georgia's going to see Grant Delp at the LSU safety on Saturday. That's a guy that can also do some of that kind of stuff, playing a center field style safety position where he really occupies a lot of turf and mans that very well. I think that Cine's one of those guys that can potentially do some of that kind of stuff as well. Richard Pollard says, love to hear that. Our League of Shadows, which is the nickname for the defensive secondary that Mel Tucker has kind of made famous. He says that's getting pretty nasty. Yeah, right now there's no doubt about that. Philip Jordan Wells talking about the number of Georgia fans who are excited about the Cine news. That's really kind of a great thing to see. Look says, yes, sir, go Dogs. No doubt about that. Chuck Pearson says, swamp lizards heart broke. Yeah, so, it's so typical Florida, and I hate to be this guy, but I honesty compels me to admit, for Florida to try to come in 11th hour and have, one of those 11th hour visits here, I mean, they're really just wasting their own money at that point in time. I don't even know that Florida was a serious contender. I think that if Cine had looked somewhere else, it may have been, somewhere outside the Southeast. I don't think that Florida was a very serious very serious threat to any of this kind of stuff. But nonetheless, okay, there's the tweet from Lewis Cine. Good-looking stuff there. How about Harry Dog in the picture? Committed to the G, Cine says. Harry Dog in the background. Cool animation of him and the great edits there from the University of Georgia. Also the verse Philippians 4:13 there from Lewis Cine, making his faith front and center there. You like to see that from the young man. So great stuff from Cine, and a great day for the Georgia program here. I love what John William Adams also says in our Facebook comment section here as well, that he would be a Sean Taylor type role per the coaches. Sean Taylor, the best college defender I've ever seen. Yeah, Sean Taylor was a great defender at Michigan. At Miami. Taylor was a terrific defender there. And, as far as some more of how, Georgia would use Lewis Cine, can we skip ahead and can we do a little more audio from Lewis Cine? I was going to play the thing about the academics. We'll hold that off for just a moment. But since somebody made the comparison to Sean Taylor, let's talk here. One of the things that I think that Lewis Cine, leading up to his Georgia commitment, one of the things that I think he wanted to be really careful of is, obviously, you mentioned NFL-style safeties. Cine wants to be one of those guys in the future. And as a part of his deliberate due diligence with the Georgia program, one of the things that he wanted to make sure of is that this Georgia coaching staff could get him to the NFL from Georgia, that they had done a lot of that at the previous stop, but could they do that for him at Georgia? And here's how all that went down. First of all, Cine's questions about, were these Georgia coaches going to be able to get him to the NFL? Here is Cine on that.
One thing that I've seen from observing Georgia, they weren't safety or secondary school to start with. So I asked him, how are you guys going to develop in this defense and actually put me in the league? Because from what I've been observing through past years, you guys are really a DB school in a way. It's really a running back you. And, they really hit me with their resume of, the guys they've coached and put in the league. And a lot of those guys were some straight dog DBs, but those guys were from Alabama. So that was one question.
So I don't think you can fault him for that. I mean, he wants to make sure he's making the right choice. He said, hey, can you get me to the NFL? Can you do at Georgia and replicate what happened in Alabama? And the reason why I play that is because to set you up for this next clip here, because for those of you who are making comparisons between Cine and other safeties, here are some of the comparisons the Georgia coaches actually used when they talked about Lewis Cine, saying, you remind me of this guy and that guy. And if you're a fan of college football, these are pretty big names to be compared to. Here's more from Cine.
One question.
Did they say you remind them, or you're kind of a parallel to a guy they coached?
Yeah, they said that I can be built and big as Colin, but also have the speed of Haha.
Haha Clinton Dix?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you're built like Landon Collins, but you have the speed of Haha. That's what they thought?
Yes, sir.
And I guess those are safeties that you know about their craft and what they
do. Very well.
So that's, it's kind of interesting to hear the Georgia coaches make their comparison of, hey, you remind us of a Ha-Ha Clinton Dix. You remind us of a Landon Collins, guys that Kirby Smart, Mel Tucker did know well from their time at Alabama. So that's when the Georgia coaches look at Lewis Cine. That's the kind of player they think that he could be. And obviously for those of us who've been around the game for a while, watching it very closely, we know the impact that these top safeties can have. And clearly Georgia thinks that Lewis Cine has a chance to be that and keep this recruiting momentum going here for the Georgia Bulldogs. Here, let me get a few more comments on Facebook and YouTube, and then we're going to get Jayden Hazelwood here. So I'm reading a comment as I'm talking. First of all, that's probably never a bad idea. I'm reading Drew Roman's comment as I'm talking. We are not going to get Jayden Hazelwood here on the phone, although maybe one day we will. We're going to get Jeff Sintel on the phone in just a moment, who's no consolation prize there. I'm reading Drew Roman's question about Jayden Hazelwood, and I'm saying that instead. So we're going to get Jeff Sintel on the Lewis Cine commitment here in just a moment. We'll do that. Drew Roman, meanwhile, in our Facebook comment section says, why would Jayden Hazelwood go to Miami? I mean, listen, I think that the Hazelwood commitment's a long way from being done. And I think that some of the mainstream media that does not follow recruiting all that closely, who wants to take a grab at the Hazelwood news and say, oh, see, maybe the Georgia recruiting momentum's not what it once was. I think clearly you see on the heels of that decommitment, Cine not wavering here at all to come into the Georgia program, that Hazelwood's going on through his own process right now. That's an individual process. Much like Cine's, it's going to be a deliberate process, but that is not a part of a larger narrative or a larger story for Georgia right now. There are still some dominoes that most of us think have a very good chance of falling for UGA. Cine was certainly one of those, and it has indeed happened, and there are plenty more There's plenty more to come here in just a moment. Brendan Manley says, "Go Dogs" here. Once again, the comparisons to Cine and other safeties continue. We like that. We'll look forward to getting Jeff Sintel here coming up in just a moment, too. I know many of you want to hear about him. Sylvester Quarterman Jr. says people forget about Nadab Joseph as well, maybe coming back next year from junior college. That's one of those guys that Georgia fans would have loved to have seen this year as a freshman, may get a chance to see somewhere in the future as well. And, coming back from injury here to a certain point, Devod Wilson's also a name to think about for Georgia here, too. Nick Lurch in our Facebook comment section says, the Dogs will be second to none. We now have a drive and a deep desire to be the best. That would be the Kirby effect. Yeah, one of the things that you love here. And listen, if you watch Before the Hedges a lot, or if you've watched and listened to Dog Nation Daily for a long time, one of the things that is that when possible, I like for Georgia to get Georgia guys, people from the state of Georgia, in other words. But also, I think I speak on the behalf of all Georgia fans when I say what you really want is Georgia to get the best possible players here. And Lewis Cine's a guy from outside the state, but the drive and desire that Nick Lurch was just talking about, one of the ways that's really on display is the way in which the Kirby Smart and the coaching staff identifies the top possible target available, and they'll go chase him down even if he's 1,000 miles away in Texas. So that's one of the things you'd like to see about that, Nick. I think that's a great comment. All right, it's Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. My name is Brandon Adams. You normally see Jeff Sintel here in the program. We're going to get him coming up in just a second. Before that, let me remind you, though, that Kroger's got a great new program. It's called Kroger Ship, and it's really, really easy. The essentials you need delivered right to your door. You can shop now and save 15%. You get 15% off, plus you get free shipping on your first order. So no reason not to take advantage of Kroger Ship. Now, a guy that's already shipped himself over to Louisiana here for Dog Nation Invasion, a lot of early intel from the booth there, is our buddy Dog Nation recruiting insider Jeff Sintel. He joins us here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. Jeff, thanks for making some time with us on what I know is already a very busy day for you. And I guess let me just give you the floor here for some early reaction. Your thoughts on Georgia sealing the deal here and getting the commitment from Lewis Cine. We know he's a good player. How does all this fit into the plans of the Bulldogs in your mind?
Yeah, hey guys. I guess happy commitment day for a lot of people. I know those that are yearning and craving for new commitments, especially after the three that departed the class last week. I guess they're going to be satisfied, maybe until this weekend, maybe when some more news pops up. I think that, I've been talking to Lewis for quite some time. This is kind of a different guy. I mean, probably the nature of my reporting is to tell our viewers and our audience and our readers a little bit more than just how tall he is, how much he weighs, where is he rated, a little bit more than just which schools he is considering, and then what kind of football player he could be at the next level. Lewis kind of describes himself, for those Georgia fans that are wondering what they're getting. This is kind of a hybrid guy, a little bit of Richard LeCount ferocity to attack the ball, and also a lot of that savvy that makes J.R. Reed such an indispensable player back there for Georgia. Really likes to fit at Georgia, has liked it for quite some time, all the way down to guys like Bakari Rambo and guys like Nick Williams. This is a young man from Haiti. He wears number 16 on his jersey as a nod to his mother. She had him when she was just 16 years old, and that is kind of an eternal nod, or just a thank you for all the struggles she went through when she was young to bring him into this world. He's still in Haiti, and if this guy makes it to the NFL, what he will do, some people buy mama a house, some people buy mama a car. He wants and he aims to bring her to the States to live with the rest of his family. He grew up in Boston. He was in Florida for a little bit. He grew up in Boston, moved to Texas because he wanted to prove himself in the highest rungs of Texas high school football. He is coached by a lot of former NFL players at Trinity Christian in Cedar Hill. He's a 2019 Under Armour All-American, 6'3", 195, the nation's number 3 overall safety. He becomes the 17th commitment for Georgia in the class of 2019. And this guy will enroll early. And he basically has told me that his recruiting is all done. Don't look for him to visit anywhere else. He's good with this, and he worked his way through his recruiting journey, all according to a very specific plan.
So I think that's really interesting. And, one of the things that your reporting has let us know over the last few weeks is that one of the reasons why he might be shutting it down and not, continuing his recruitment open is not just the relationship he has with the Georgia coaches, but with the relationship he has with the Georgia players. We heard him on some audio earlier talking about Micaiah Tongue. We know his relationship with the four-star linebacker Ryan Davis is, very well developed at this point. I mean, how much does all that play into this, that when he has come to Georgia, he has made fast friendships with some of the other players that'll be in this 2019 UGA class?
Well, I think he's a guy that he's going to stand on his own. He compares himself a lot, even though we use Richard McCount there and J.R. Reed. He wants to be a Sean Taylor type safety. That's a ball hawk and also a Humvee maybe flying down towards the football. And he's a guy that's not going to follow what other guys do, but he does have a camaraderie with a lot of the Georgia commitments. Ryan Treble Davis is one. Like I said before, he's really tight with Nick Williams, former Georgia safety, and also Bakari Ramo, the former Georgia All-American. Bakari told him while he's done some recruiting and telling him about Georgia that he wants him to break his interception record while he's at Georgia. Lewis is a guy that will flash a lot on film. He had 26 tackles in his first high school game for Trinity Christian this fall, and he's also the type of player that just flies to the ball. He's blocked 2 field goals already so far during his senior season. He's the type of guy that I think very purposeful. You saw him take his official visit to Georgia, then another official visit to Florida. He took other official visits to Michigan and Penn State, and also Texas. But I kind of tucked it away in the back of my mind when I started talking to him. I think it was late March, early April. I just kind of tucked that name away as a guy that sounds like he's going to wind up at Georgia. He just doesn't know it yet.
All right, hang with us just for 1 second, Jeff. Let me get people up to date here. 4-star safety Lewis Cine has committed to the University of Georgia. This is a special presentation of Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. Jeff, let me show people here on the screen here for a moment a little taste of Lewis Cine's commitment video that dropped as part of the way in which he announced this. We showed you on Twitter a moment ago his tweet celebrating Georgia. We also see here kind of a cool look as he unzips the jacket. The shirt is on. The Georgia G kind of flashes there. Little special effect there. That's not a bad look there from the folks from Chime in Media. Pretty good job there in that regard. Jeff Kirby Smart, Georgia coach, has also tweeted. Obviously, he can't mention Cine by name, but it's become customary to see the tweets from coaches when it comes to stuff like this. Kirby Smart gives you a go Dogs, which is essentially a wink and a nod in this day and age here. So obviously the Georgia coaches feel good about this. Kirby Smart feels good about this, even though he can't mention Cine by name. And, Jeff, I guess let me go back to a word that gets used a lot about Cine, and that's versatility. But one of the things I said before you joined us is that to me, when it comes to the defensive secondary, versatility means not so much cornerbacks who hit like safeties, but safeties who can run like cornerbacks. And that's really what the value of Cine is, right? We know that he lays the lumber. We know that he brings that physical style. But if that's all you do, that doesn't work very well in 2019 in college football. You got to be able to run because you're seeing 4 receiver sets from your competition most of the time. And that's really what Cine is. His versatility is a safety that can run like a cornerback, correct?
Yeah, I think Brandon, sometimes when we get around some of our audience and some of our Dog Nation plan or at special events like Marlowe's Tavern last night, sometimes they say something like they play games every time. Brandon, you might say something during your daily show or your Facebook stream, like, it's not a show unless Brandon says this or that. Well, sometimes I find myself maybe one of the most often used phrases I use when I describe Georgia recruiting as I say something about the defensive backfield. And Georgia really wants 5 guys like J.R. Reed, 5 guys like, obviously Tyson Campbell, and now I think they want 5 guys like Lewis Cine. Those are guys that can play the star, that can come down in the box when teams want to go tempo or NASCAR on Georgia. I really say this a lot because this is the best way I can describe it for our audience. Swiss Army knife defensive backs. They want guys that have every tool in the arsenal, can run, can cover, can hit, play ferocious football, play some of that junkyard dog defense football, but also know their assignments and know their keys and be very fundamentally sound football players. I know player parallels get tossed out a lot, but the Georgia coaches told Lewis Cine that they think he one day can be able to be big and physical like Landon Collins, young man from Louisiana, and also run like Clinton Dix. So that's kind of the gold standard of safeties in the SEC over the last 5 years. That was the fit that really worked for Lewis because he saw that guys like Tucker and Smart have built defensive backs. I'm going to tell folks this. When Georgia wants a defensive back, a lot of times they're going to end up getting them just because of the pedigree and the resume of Kirby Smart and also Mel Tucker. Of course, DJ Daniel is an exception so far in the class of 2019. But, Lewis Cine is a guy that, you like a lot of things about him. He's very purposeful. He goes about his business. He's been getting some very good advice from guys like Deion Sanders. And I know Brandon. Brandon's probably frothing at the mouth right now, my buddy BA, about where does this lead? Where does this go? And I'm going to just say this, Brandon. Lewis Cine to Georgia helped a great deal with Shedeur Sanders to Georgia as well. Those two guys, you fancy the chance of playing together, especially because the 2021 quarterback, Shedeur Sanders, the son of Deion Sanders, already really likes the thought of him winding up at Georgia one day.
That's a really interesting thing to think about for 2021 quarterback there. Jacob McMillan in our Facebook comment section says, basically, who's next here, which is always the great question on the heels of this. And, Jeff, I guess, in maybe a way that's a little bit easier for you to answer, what are the next timeline dominoes to fall here? With the Lewis Cine box checked, and it sounds like Georgia's now free to focus its attention on uncommitted players, at least from a Cine's standpoint. He won't need a whole lot of hand-holding here. Where does the attention go next?
Well, I think Georgia has to work on its defensive back, but unfortunately guys like Kyer Elam, guys like Tyreek Stevenson, they're not going to make their decisions known for a little bit. I would look for, Georgia to sit there and address the remaining pieces of its class. They go after another offensive lineman. And Nakobe Dean is a name everybody's going to bring up, but I think there's some specific timelines, the one for Clay Webb, of course, the one for Nakobe Dean, of course. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's maybe one more mid-year commitment coming. And always, guys, these things are very up and down. It depends on the changing nature and the cyclical nature of a teenager's mind. But I would say, like I wrote the other day, that kind of trying to explain the decommitments. Well, every action on a recruiting class, kind of like dominoes, Kirby Smart referred to it as musical chairs the other day in the press room when describing the recruiting process that was undertaken by Monty Rice, LSU, Georgia, LSU, back and forth. And I think that could seriously happen here, but you should see Georgia, when they lose commitments, when they gain commitments, especially like the 10 or 11 they took in 31 days back in July, from June to July, I thought obviously some transition was going to happen in the class because numbers are at a premium. And now when you see the 3 decommitments drop and Georgia fell out of the number 1 class in the country from 19 commitments down to 16 public commitments, Lewis Cine boosts them back up to 17. And this is another one of those yin and yang reaction, equal and opposite reaction type thing for all those physics and science majors out there. All
right, before we let you go, I want to get an update on what you're going to be doing in Louisiana this week. Before that, though, just to squeeze it in real quick, you mentioned the 24/7 Sports composite team ranking. I guess Georgia's going to stay ranked behind Alabama and Texas A&M here even after the Cine commitment, but the average commit rank of the Georgia recruits is going to be higher than either Bama or A&M there. So obviously Georgia in a pretty good shape here, despite the fact that it's not currently toting the number 1 ranking, correct?
Yeah, Georgia's definitely top heavy with their class. Georgia moves back up to number 17. They're still number 3 in the country. Interesting though, Lewis Cine, with the departure of Jayden Hazelwood from the class, he becomes now the 5th highest rated commitment on the board. I think it is very nice seeing Ryan Trouble-Davis and Lewis Cine kind of at 5 and 6 in the class. Those two guys, they took their official visit to Texas together. They got to know one another very well. Trouble-Davis even had an ACL injury and a torn meniscus he suffered, but he still found a way to get to Athens and hang out with Lewis Cine on the Sunday of his official visit to Georgia. And remember, I'm not a crystal ball guy. I kind of like present the information for our viewers and our audience to kind of pick things up on. But I thought one very important aspect of a story we published a while back on Dog Nation was when we talked about that review, and Lewis Cine in his own words described the review. He described what his father, Andre Cine, how he felt about it. And there was a little bitty nugget there where Lewis's father said he'd like to visit a whole lot. He sure hoped that he got a chance to come back to Athens again one day. And now, of course, that's a pretty good foreshadowing there. We now know that Lewis Cine, an early enrollee for the class of 2019 at Georgia, he's going to give his father, Andre Cine, a big Boston fan. He's probably extremely happy right now, considering his son's committed to Georgia, and his Red Sox just spanked the Yankees as well. He's going to get his chance to come back to Georgia a lot, and the 2019 Under Armour All-American is now, got to think about this now, he's now the only defensive back commitment for Georgia right now in the class of 2019. And another thing we wrote about earlier this week, I wanted to make sure Brandon's ears and the Dog Nation Daily ears heard all this. Very interesting, this class, the turns it has taken, because right now, Georgia only has 3 commitments from the state of Georgia among those 17 in the class of 2019. And, you can call Nolan Smith a boarding school student in Florida. He's a Savannah native. He's a Georgia boy. But if you want to skew that a little bit, that's only 4 Georgians in the class of 2019. And here's Georgia just expanding its footprint. Type of things that the Rose Bowl does and playing for the national title does. They no longer have to just rely on those Georgia boys, and especially those really proficient and tough down south Georgia boys to get the players they want. It looks a whole lot like Alabama year 2, year 3 of that machine, where they decided to go everywhere and anywhere they wanted to, even Texas, even Boston, to go get the players they want to fill out the recruiting shopping list for 2019.
All right, speaking of shopping, we appreciate you being here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger. And, Jeff, before we let you go, we know your Dog Nation invasion has kind of already kicked off here. So give us a taste of what we can expect from you here over the course of the next few days there. I can't wait to see you tomorrow night when the rest of us get to Louisiana. But you're already on your way there, and we're looking forward to a lot of great stuff from you coming up this week.
Yeah, Brandon, I don't think you're going to look like Cousin Eddie coming in the RV, looking with an RV full of blind squirrels into New Orleans. I thought about putting a breaking headline on the Dog Nation site today, but I did spot about 12 or 13 Georgia team fans all in their regalia on my flight to Louis Armstrong Airport on early this morning. And I also will report, it may not come as breaking news, but New Orleans, folks, still smells like the New Orleans you remembered as well.
So corn dogs then.
Corn dogs, bourbon. I mean, they have a go-to drive-through on your way out to the rental car station, liquor store right in the middle of the airport, and that's how they do it down here in the quarter.
Well, listen, Jeff, it's great to talk to you, and I'll look forward to seeing you there. You're going to be with us on Friday for a very special edition of Dog Nation Daily Live from New Orleans there at Manning Sports Bar. We're looking forward to reading a bunch from you as well. And we appreciate you being here on Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger today, to react to 4-star safety Lewis Cine committing to Georgia. Jeff, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, I got a code word for everybody that bumps into us in New Orleans this weekend at Baton Rouge. Say B.A. beignet, because when you get to town, Brandon, first round of beignets is on me.
That's exactly right, Jeff. We'll talk to you then. And listen, y'all, we're going to New Orleans. You got to have the good food, right? And you got to have that. And Jeff, thanks so much for your time, by the way. You got to have the you're going there to eat, right? Now y'all can look at me and tell that I'm going everywhere to eat. But nonetheless, I'm excited about some good food in New Orleans. Excited about a good time. And I meant to show this last night when we were at Marlowe's. I meant to show this morning on Dog Nation Daily. So here in this very special edition of Before the Hedges, presented by Kroger, I'll unveil, this is what the Dog Nation Invasion t-shirt is going to look like. For those of us who were lucky enough to be on the trip, for those of you coming with us to New Orleans, courtesy of our great sponsors here, either won one of the trips or whatever, these are our Dog Nation Invasion t-shirts. Big thanks to Kroger and the rest of our sponsors, including Marlowe's, R.S. Andrews, and Skyland Brookhaven for that. But really good. Let me flip it back over here so people can see. Really good-looking Dog Nation Invasion T-shirt here. How nice is that? Look at that camera work, too, the zoom in and everything else. Let me see if I can hold this up better so people can see it. The Dog Nation Invasion T-shirt. This is what it's going to be looking like. This is what we're going to be wearing. This is what everybody's excited about heading into Louisiana coming up on Thursday. We're going to be there, and it's going to be a great time. All right, let me do a couple of things here before we get ready to get out. Jeff mentioned the relationship with Ryan Davis, and I just think as a way of kind of looking back on what we've learned here today, 4-star safety Lewis Cine committing to Georgia, it's really the relationship with a lot of those players, Davis, the 4-star linebacker included, who ends up being instrumental on this. Lewis Cine, on the heels of a recent visit to Georgia, talked about, what it was that he liked about Davis, the fact that he really saw himself wanting to play with that player. He was seen again talking about another Georgia commit.
That's got to be good, right? A guy that's like, I'm going to come up to make sure he has a good time because I want to play with that guy. That's got to be a good feeling, right?
Yeah, of course. That's a great feeling because he knows what I can do and I know what he can do. That dude has a motor. He's a guy that I would actually see myself playing with, want to play with.
All right, let me also clarify one thing here. I don't know why this is. Nager Yang in our Facebook comment section says that the T-shirt looks like it's pink and not red. This T-shirt could not be more red, but it is true. Like, under these lights, I'm telling you right now, if you're in this room right now, this T-shirt's red as it can be. It's the same thing when we put our Dog Nation Invasion logo in the screen for some of our other shows that we've done. Something about the lights makes the red turn to a different color. I've noticed the same thing. I thought it was just me because I'm colorblind, but the T-shirt could not be more red, but it sort of wilts under the light somehow. So much like in Christmas Vacation, which Jeff already quoted, the little lights aren't twinkling. Thanks for noticing. Thanks for noticing that the T-shirt's not exactly popping in red on the studio, but I can promise you it is as red as it can certainly be there on that. And by the way, Cine talks about Ryan Davis. What's cool here is that Ryan Davis also feels just as strongly about Lewis Cine. These are two guys that not only wanted to take visits to Georgia together, but really want to play together on the field in the future. Here's the four-star linebacker dealing with a little bit of an injury right now, but he'll be healthy again, and he and Cine together could be wreaking havoc on the SEC.
I'm recruiting right now. My assignment is Lewis. I'm going to get him there. After he takes his official up there, I'm going to make sure I'm there, and I'm going to just work my magic.
So, I mean, listen, I think for a lot of us, when Kirby Smart put together that 2017 class, that's when the momentum for Georgia really built. And what was cool about that is it came off the heels of a not-so-great season. It was 8-5, and yet from the minute the season ended, the recruiting class started spinning towards a big conclusion, number 3 in the country according to 24/7 Sports, but it's like a plus 300 class, so that's good enough to be number 1 in a number of years here. And what was cool about that class was not just the level of player, although it was a very high caliber of player, but the relationships they had with each other. The Christmas commitments videos, we saw examples of that. LeCount and Fromm and all those guys that had so many good friendships together and were really led in sort of Pied Piper fashion by, the guys that I just mentioned. That made that 2017 class really fun and kind of a gold standard for how future Georgia classes would be measured, including the 2018 class, even though it was more highly rated. The chemistry that the 2017 class had together was always going to be something that Georgia fans look back fondly on. When you hear Ryan Davis and Lewis Cine, who just committed to Georgia, when you hear them talking about their desire to play with each other and hang out together and enjoy that time on campus, it really gives you a sense that more momentum could be building here for the rest of this 2019 class. So it's a great thing to see, and it's been really fun to cover it here for you on Before the Hedges presented by Kroger. I know there was some confusion in the comment section earlier. Maybe I haven't done a good job of explaining this. So this is Before the Hedges. So normally we're at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Jeff's in Louisiana. Lewis Cine's making his announcement today, so we decided to do a special Before the Hedges presentation of the Lewis Cine announcement. The great news is we'll be back next Wednesday at our normal time at 3 p.m. But for today, around the breaking news, we wanted to do the live edition of Before the Hedges a little earlier. It's always live, but you know what I'm saying. We wanted to do it sort of a special reaction to the breaking news here. So thanks for watching this special edition of Before the Hedges. And if you've checked us out for the first time here, we do Recruiting Talk with Jeff Sintel, normally in studio with me every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time, presented by Kroger. We call it Before the Hedges, looking at the next generation of UGA stars. We'd love to have you join us for that. Tomorrow, I'll be back at 10 a.m. for another episode of Dog Nation Daily Live. And after that, we are on our way to Louisiana for Dog Nation Invasion. For those of you who are watching around the world here and maybe in the path of the Hurricane Michael, our prayers are with you, of course, and we'll be cheering you on in the midst of your recovery here. We know you'll be built back better than ever before, but just know our thoughts and prayers are with you here in what is a challenging and difficult time for many, both in Southwest Georgia, the Florida Panhandle, and a lot of places in the path of that storm there. We take that very seriously as we head towards a fun weekend for many other Georgia fans. We'll do so with heavy hearts in some respects, but nonetheless, we'll continue to watch and see how that progresses and continue to get you updated on the big weekend in Louisiana there for the Georgia Bulldogs. If you're making your own travel, safe travels to you. Talk to you tomorrow as we get ready for a tremendous weekend, knowing that Georgia's already got something of a victory to get things started. 4-star safety Lewis Cine making his commitment announcement a moment ago, choosing the University of Georgia. Plenty more where that came from to come here for the class of 2019. We'll look forward to covering it with you. Thanks for being here on a special edition of Before the Edges, presented by Kroger. Y'all have a great afternoon, everybody.